And if you want to get into the conspiracy theories, boys, why is Binance being taken out a couple months before impending approval? Trying to keep the price suppressed so Larry can accumulate.
There we go.
Not investment advice.
Not investment advice. There we go. That's a Jack's face is so good.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I love that Jack. I love how Jack's like, yeah, I got nothing to add, and then 5 minutes later drops the biggest bombshell.
All right, welcome to another episode of Not Investment Advice. We've got Trung Phan, Jack Butcher, and Bilal Zaidi. We got the full beanie gang. Jack, we didn't even coordinate this. This was not like in the group chat. Everyone wear a beanie. It's just getting cold. Jack's rocking the one that actually looks kind of cool.
Yeah,
what's
Jack's
that little Carhartt
nice.
Piece? What's going on?
Yeah. Well, let me actually. This is a good anecdote for the funny story that I didn't want to tell you boys before we got on the pod. So I went on that trip last week. Just got back yesterday from Dubai, and the first day I was there, I was like, oh, I should get a haircut. So before I left, I was like, oh, I'll get a haircut before I go. You know how it is before a trip, you never get time to do that stuff. So I was like, oh, I'll just get one when I get to a hotel. That'd be like, I'll find someone there.
What was it, $10?
So we check in there. We check in there. And the next day, they're like, oh, yeah, there's a salon downstairs. Just go down there and they'll sort you out in the morning. I was like, all right, great. So I go down there. Men's haircut, please. Just skin fade,
back
trim
and
the
sides.
beard. Yeah, just nothing too crazy. And the guy's like, oh, yeah, no worries. Starts cutting it. He's like, oh, your hair is a bit tired from the travel. You want me to put you want me to sort it out a little bit? I was like, yeah, go on then, mate. So all done. Yeah, nice haircut. Go get to the end of the bill. How much you boys think a haircut was in a hotel?
Oh, man.
In Dubai.
I'm the hotels, because I bet you were in a nice one too.
I'm guessing you weren't at a 2-star. You weren't staying at a hostel.
It was a nice
Here's for context, boys. Kanye West was staying in my hotel.
There we go.
Oh.
There we go. So
okay, hold on.
And wait, let's not bury the lead there. You were there for Formula One, which we talked about last week.
Yeah.
Your art style, which we'll talk about. We're also going to talk about UAE, Dubai in a minute, but. So you were there as a guest, I guess, right? As someone, exactly. Yeah. So you live in a good life. So Trung, you go first. I'll do over under.
Are you gonna price this right me? Or am I gonna give a number? Are you gonna do one number less? Are you about to do that?
Right. What was that higher? Yeah, go on.
Price is right. I love that show, man. They guess their price and just somebody else sneaks a $1 under. $200 with tip. So I'm saying 150. And I know Jack's a generous dude, so he's doing at least 30% tip. So 195. 195 is my final guess. Okay. Bilal.
I'm going over. I'm going 250.
Okay. Including tip.
We'll see. We'll see what the answer is. But go on, Jack, just hit us with it.
$900, boys.
No!
Shut the fuck.
No! There's
no way.
Jack!
Wait, what?
Jack!
I mean, beautiful haircut.
$9 haircut.
Yeah.
You paid $900 for a $9 haircut? No,
that's ridiculous.
Bro.
So Jack, the thing that he did with the treatment thing, I look on the thing afterwards, he turns it around, caviar shampoo.
Oh, for God, Jesus
Jack.
Christ, no way.
How? Jack, hold on.
That's
Jack,
the worst.
How choked were you? I get
was
choked if I get a
it.
surprise supersize. How mad were you?
I sort of,
Where were you?
I had to do the conversion as well. So it was 3,350 dirhams.
Yeah.
And I remember looking up before, I was like, that seems quite steep from the napkin math that I did a couple of weeks ago before we came.
A bit more than lunch today.
Yeah. Mate. But I just,
Wait, what was the breakdown between the caviar shampoo versus the regular?
The upsell was insane. I mean, that was probably...
You got to respect the hustle there. You got
60-70% of it. It was still a very, very expensive hair. Like, I pay $25 to get my haircut here. So that was a... I don't know, 10,000x premium.
It's so shocking to Trung that his internet's already given out. Oh, there he is. He's back. All right. His internet was shocked.
I should pay for the internet, the quality of internet that Jack paid for his haircut. That's the plan I should be getting. Jack, hold on. Did I miss that? What was your dude? Did you even see like a price list? Like the places I go to says men's 25, women's 30.
No price list. Well, that's a lot of the whole thing.
That's what you know. Anything where there's no price, you know they're hitting you with it.
So, dude, what did you? Hold on, Jack.
You want me to wax your? Do you want me to wax your nostrils? He put wax up my nostrils. I was just like, yeah, I enjoy it.
Did they do the fire thing? The old Turkish barber move.
Fire, but they did the wax in the nostrils, wax in the ears, wax the cheeks, trim the eyebrows, and he was just hitting me with those upsells. I'll be waiting
for a little bit more than that for $900 to be honest.
The invoice was, like 12, 13 lines on there.
What?
So I got
Celia's reaction?
Yeah, disbelief, but we just.
She just found out right now, so no.
You just take it on the chin. She found out.
Dude, I mean, to be honest though, Jack, that was a rookie ass move, man. You're going to get a haircut in the hotel. First of all, you go to a hotel in a 5-star plus hotel, a coffee is going to cost you $20, right? So what more is going to be a nose wax? You're looking at $500.
Nose wax is ridiculous. So that was brilliant because Jack said in the group chat, he said, I got a funny story for you, but I won't share. That's a great story,
man.
I'm glad you didn't tell us because that was good.
That was great,
gold.
Dude.
We're going to have to.
Let's run through some more highlights.
In the comments, let me know if you've got anything, if you can outdo that for a men's
Or
haircut.
if you're from UAE, can you tell him where to go next time?
Exactly. Save that on Yelp for next time. Star that on maps, mate. But yeah, beautiful. Well, look, we're going to break down the UAE, booming UAE, United Arab Emirates. You're in Dubai, but there's multiple states that we're going to talk a little bit about what they're doing as it relates to not just Formula One, which was what you were there for, but also technology, blockchain, AI, supercomputers, diversification from oil. They definitely got the oil money.
They got more oil than Russia.
There we go. That's
this is how much cheddar the UAE has.
10% of the world's oil supply, correct?
10% of the world's oil supply, 0.1% of the population, of the world's population.
Wild, right?
That's how much money. So Jack mentioned before we got on the podcast that he was walking around Dubai, and people just it's for works jobs. People just they have to employ all these people to prevent unrest, right? This happens in Saudi Arabia too, where you just employ everyone. You just give them a stipend basically from that oil money. Although, as we're going to talk about, UAE is transitioning away from that because they do understand that oil is ultimately going to reach a peak oil situation. But having said that, Bilal, what else are we going to talk about?
Yeah, so we're going to break that down, some fun facts about UAE. But it's beyond just the fun facts, it's quite an interesting case study of how countries like UAE or like regions in that oil states essentially have to diversify. So it relates to Saudi, which we've talked about in the pod with sports and stuff like that as well. So we're going to give a few examples of that. We're also going to recap how the OpenAI stuff netted out by the end. We covered a lot of it last week, obviously, did a whole deep dive. So we'll do a quick recap of where it finished. And then we'll also recap what we know of the Binance situation, CZ stepping down, $4 billion fine. And yeah, that should round us out. But why don't we start with more stuff on UAE, Jack? Because you mentioned getting bumped with the nose waxing. But what was the rest of your time there like, man? Because you were there for Formula One. We saw you posting some baller videos. What was it, like a pit walk you did? You were like right in there, man. So that must have been mad.
It was an impressive trip, boys. I mean, it's like I'd never been before. Got a lot of friends that have either spent a lot of time there or now live there, heard good things. All the hospitality stuff is just next level beyond, whatever I've experienced. Like, airport's great. Hotel was incredible. The F1 itself was, I went to a F1 race in Austin, like probably 7 years ago or something. I was working. Worst hangover of my life. I think I told that story on the pod before, but like a F1 is the last place you want to be with a bad hangover. So I didn't have a great memory of the F1 event from last time I went, but this time was great. It was like, just a class experience. And what else is there? We did a couple of other things around it. Went to
the Louvre.
So we stayed in Dubai. Yeah, stayed in Dubai, and the race was in Abu Dhabi. But we went to the Louvre on the Friday. Just unbelievable. This building, I forget the name of the architect, but this thing is like Eiffel Tower level, human built monument. It's just the most ridiculous thing you've ever seen. It's like has this 7,500 ton lattice steel roof. It's like this dome that's made out of steel, and it's all latticed to work with the sun throughout the day and position light and regulate heat. It's absolutely mental, this building. So went there, did a tour of the Louvre. There's a couple Da Vinci's in there. It's pretty remarkable, man. The story behind that is I guess the state licensed the Louvre name, and I think they have it till the late 2040s, and they're building this epic art collection. I actually love the way they organized the museum out there. It's like sequential human history. So you go in, it's like the first objects created by humans, and then you go to like accounting and mark making and the storage of knowledge, and then kingdom building and Silk Road commerce, all this. And it's like the last room is the 21st century, and it takes you from the beginning of man-made objects to now. Really, so if anyone's out in that area, definitely recommend going out there. Yeah, we did the race. What else did we do?
Food. Talk about food.
Trip.
Well, first of all, how far is Dubai from Abu Dhabi? How did you get between the two places?
It's about an hour. We drove back and forth.
Okay, nice. And then give us a little highlights on the food here. And was the meals more or less than your haircut?
Mate, so the food is definitely expensive, but the couple hotels that we stayed around, we went to the Nobu on the first night. Mental good. That was maybe the best meal I've had ever. Incredible.
What did you eat? What did we have? The the hot stone, the Wagyu on the hot stone, the like sashimi, sushi. Like I didn't do any of the ordering. I was just there, just sort of
sit back,
feed me. Yeah, just sit back and just grab it from the middle. Incredible. What was this one thing? It was like I forget. It was like Szechuan lobster or something. Just like everything was mental in there. Incredible. Oh, yeah. And then the hotel buffet in the morning. This will blow your mind, man. They're like, they put this thing on every morning. It's the most ridiculous thing you've ever seen. Like this room must be 20,000 square feet, and there's all these different stations. There's sushi, pizza, Indian,
breakfast,
pasta,
sushi.
Freaking
Bro,
full
what did you
English
have?
station.
I need to know
omelet.
what you had.
I had everything. So I would tactically approach each station, protein heavy, not go too hard on the carbs. The buffet was just mad. That was like next level, man. The ice cream station with 1,000 toppings in there. So it was just excess. Pure excess.
I have a thought about breakfast buffets. I know we've all stayed at nice hotels and resorts, right? Because obviously not this 20,000 square foot thing Jack's describing, but we've all probably been at 5-star breakfast buffets, which is one of the greatest treats ever. But the strategy is this, like Jack says, you cannot go to the omelet and egg station. You cannot do that.
You can do that at home.
That is the cheapest thing
on
the menu. You have to hit the seafood. You have to hit the seafood. You have to
Trunk's there trying to get his money's worth.
No, dude.
Lobster for breakfast.
An omelet. My wife and I were staying at a couple 5-stars in Asia, and she's like, I'll have to get her the food. And I'm like, hey, what do you want? She's like, I don't know. Get me like a Western omelet. I'm like, Western omelet? Are you out of your mind? There's fresh lobster. You're going to eat 10 fresh lobster tails. I don't even care if you want them.
That's what happens, man. 100%. So, Jack, anything else? You mentioned the Louvre thing. That's actually an interesting example, which we're going to go into, because like everyone, as you mentioned, obviously a massive oil state. I've got some numbers here. I think 1/3 of GDP is from oil and gas, which in comparison, Saudi is about 50%, US is 7%, Canada 9%, Russia is 16%. So as a proportion of GDP, still significant, but they're diversifying away. Go on, Jack.
10 years ago.
I got one other good story, actually.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead, Jack.
One other good story.
Let's do it.
So when we drove down to that museum one day, we were coming back, and I look at the gas meter in the car. So you got 20 kilometers left. It's like, all right, shit. So we have to pull off, go to the gas station, pull in, fill the car up, try and pay. We don't take American Express. All I had on me was 2 Amex cards. And so I go on my phone, and you can do like you could create a virtual card. So I got my bank, create a virtual card, MasterCard, whatever, bang. It triggers the you're not traveling, blah, 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 fraud alert. Get on the phone to the bank. I'm walking around this petrol station, like on the phone. And the attendant was pissed off for a little bit. He's like, because I filled it up before I asked him if they took Amex. And then he goes to me, he's like, just ask somebody, they'll pay for it.
$900 fee for using a card, Amex card.
So I'm in there. I was like, no, I'm not going to ask someone. I'm on the phone to the bank. They'll sort it out. We'll get it sorted. I'm on the phone. Someone's like, oi, oi, like waving out of the window. He's like, what's going on? And he's like, what, you here for the F1? This guy is local. I was like, yeah. He goes, what's wrong? What you doing? I was like, oh, my card's not working. He's like, I'll pay for it. I'm like, no, I'll sort it out. $200 of gas or something. I was like, no, I'll be all right. He's like, no, I'll pay for it. And he just gives the attendant the card, pays for it. So another good story from there. So that's a little.
People got that oil money in many ways. Man.
Yeah, just an unbelievable experience. Like if you tried to do that, I think you'd be waiting there longer than 5 minutes in the States for somebody to sort you out with that.
Totally. Yeah. Beautiful. But so Trung, you just mentioned there that you said 10, 20 years ago, that was obviously way more than 30%. Do you know what I'm assuming it was like 50, 60, 80 or something like that?
Yeah, let's go. I mean, why don't we just rewind to the beginning of the 20th century? Like just a super TLDR.
Here we go.
So
History Professor Fan coming in.
But so the United Arab Emirates, UAE, it's actually 7. It's a combination. It's like a federation of 7 absolute monarchies. So the 2 main ones is ones that Jack mentioned, Abu Dhabi and Dubai. Dubai actually doesn't have very much oil. But the reason a lot of people know Dubai over the past 2 decades, where they have this crazy real estate, like the indoor malls with the ski hills, right? Oh. And like all these massive investments is because they don't have oil. Abu Dhabi has the oil at the other Emirates. And but at the beginning of the 20th century, oil wasn't discovered until 1950. Bilal read this in the article, but the main for that, so this area is just like a outpost in the Gulf, right? It's like a lot of trade happens there, but the big part of that economy in the area was pearls, like literally like pearls from oysters. But the business got crushed by the Japanese, who learned how to farm oyster pearls. So the Japanese was responsible for destroying the economy at the time. Whatever, it's technology, right? The Japanese are good at stuff. But 1950, they discover oil. 1971, the area gets full independence from the British, because the British basically during World War I, to win World War I, the British basically cut a deal with a bunch of tribes in the region. I mean, you probably know like from history how like all the lines in the Middle East and I guess North Eastern Africa, they're like straight line. This is literally just a bunch of white guys in England like, hey, let's carve out these lines of like what the property is. But they had cut these deals with Arabian tribes. Lawrence of Arabia, famous film obviously, was to take out the Turkish and the Ottoman Turks, who were allied with the Russians. So that little bit of background. So full independence in 1971. Oil's discovered in 1950. Over the past 50 years, oil economy, we said at the top that they have massive, larger reserves in Russia. I mean, wait, Jack, you mentioned 10%? 10% of the world's oil reserves is in the UAE.
That was in the Economist.
Yeah, so just give you an idea, last year when oil was pumping over 100, they made $100 billion in oil revenues. That's about $100,000 for every Emirati citizen. 10 million people live in UAE. Only 1 million are citizens. Tons of immigrants, but like very lowly paid immigrants from Africa and India, like working total shit jobs to build like all this stuff that Jack saw. But there's also this make work thing that we talked about with places like UAE, Saudi Arabia. Is there's this kind of contract with the population, right? Is we will give you X amount of level of living, and like we'll give you fake jobs, we'll give you free education, but like we're absolute monarchies, right? Like there will be zero uprisings. The state polices in these places are insane. The security apparatuses are insane, and the whole region is run by in some capacity, pretty forward-looking individual, Mohammed bin Zayed, MBS from Saudi Arabia, which everybody knows from the news, is basically borrowing the template from UAE. It's like, how do you turn this massive oil economy into a futuristic economy, which we will talk about. But that's a TLDR. I'll pass it off to Bilal that ticked off a bunch of interesting points.
That was great, man. And you mentioned there 1 million citizens, but 10 million population. That's quite unique, right? So, and I was looking this up, like the ethnic population here. So we've got this surprised me. I mean, I kind of knew this, but I didn't know the actual numbers. 60% are South Asian.
Yeah, Indian, Pakistani.
Yeah, Indian, Bengali, and Pakistani. Like,
and they're doing these total shit jobs. I mean, it's not unsimilar to what happened with Qatar during the World Cup. Yeah. I'm not saying to that level.
Construction, yeah.
Construction where there's very like low safety and like.
When you say shit, to clarify, you're saying like it doesn't mean being a construction worker is shit. It means like they're not necessarily being protected.
They're working
and all
18
that
hours a day without like workers' rights, right? I don't actually know if that's true in UAE, but that's the reputation for a lot of South Asian workers in the region. A lot of Filipino workers. Like I have extended from my wife's side. Like I know people that have gone there, and I'm not saying
6% population like, Filipino, 10% Egyptian. So like other parts of. Like North Africa and stuff like that as well. But yeah, very interesting.
And it pays well relative though, right? There's a reason people
that's the reason people go there. And I mean, I have like cousins from Pakistan who moved there for more like IT related work and consultancy, stuff like that. And I think we've talked about this before. One time I went to Kuwait, which is not UAE technically, but it's like adjacent. I don't think it's UAE technically.
You went with Google, right?
No, it was for my own business. We were teaching a digital marketing, growth marketing thing in this.
But did people know that you worked at Google?
Yeah. Well, like X, it was after Google, but yeah. That must have been part of the pitch for sure. Yeah, I know. But anyway, well, I was actually teaching a lot of Google stuff, to be honest. It was like Google Analytics and stuff like that. But anyway, but I remember the students in the class, essentially, there were two types, like what you mentioned there. There were the Emiratis, like the citizens, the ones who basically get a lot of those benefits. And then there were other people who, in our class, were investors or marketing people, essentially, from companies. But they were like Indians, Pakistanis, like all sorts of different countries. They were even born in that region, but they weren't citizens from what I understood. So they didn't get all the benefits of being like a ethnic Arab, I guess.
Well, like we said, 10% of the population is actual citizens, right?
Yeah, and they will essentially get like, if you break your leg in the middle of nowhere, there'll be like a helicopter coming to pick you up, sort of vibe. Like the money goes crazy there for them.
Yeah, you break your leg and somebody will come up to you, be like, "Are you going to the F1?" And they'll be like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Okay, let me fix your leg."
They'll pay for the helicopter, exactly. But yeah, so it's very interesting kind of region. Like a lot of things I learned there that I didn't know. I haven't actually been to Dubai. I've just like stopped over. I didn't actually get to go out and explore properly. Jack, was there anything else that you were like surprised by when you were there? Like apart from it just looking sick?
Surprised by? No, I don't know. I think it's pretty accurate with how people have described it to me, or like how I've read about it. A lot of people I know moved there for the tax incentives too. So 0 income tax, 5% business tax, I think is the broad.
I think they had some crypto stuff too, right? Like,
I think they're just generally more
incentivizing people.
Yeah, just like come and try stuff, make stuff out here. It's like the regulatory overhead is not a massive worry there.
Oh yeah, that's right. The business in the Economist article, they cited that the business, like the ease of doing business, is actually easier to do business in UAE than the United States. I think it's ranked 24th in the world. Something that sort of the one I did mention, I'll just super quickly, was like, it basically wants to be Singapore of the Middle East, right? Mm-hmm. It wants to be this trading outpost, low regulation, very safe, incentivized business, and all built on top of this massive oil economy. But also of note, which I didn't mention, was they have a massive shipping business, right? Because of where they are in the Gulf. Like it's comparable to Singapore's, because Singapore obviously has a Strait of Malacca where 60% of oil and trade goes through for the world. So like where was it? I think it's called DP World. DP World is one of the largest logistics container shipping businesses in the entire world. And that's based from UAE.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so, Trung, you mentioned that there. What else are the industries, that they've been investing in to kind of diversify away? Because we talked about Saudi investing with their massive fund. There's the tech stuff that's been invested in. UAE has similar stuff, right? So
yeah, they got massive sovereign wealth funds. Like I think they have the third biggest one in the world. I think it's over 100 billion.
Wait, what other one? Saudi? Norway.
Norway's
right?
got like $1 trillion sovereign wealth fund.
Oh my God.
Norway. Well, I'll tell you you want a fun fact fan? I'll tell you a fun fact fan story about Norway's sovereign wealth fund. Norway has, so people probably know this from just the general business news. Norway owns like 1% of the entire world's stocks. The sovereign wealth fund does. So they discovered oil in the South. Is it the South Sea? You guys know this, right? The South Sea, because of England, it's near England, right? They discovered massive oil deposits off the coast of Norway. And Norway had no idea what to do with it. But here's something crazy. Randomly, there was an Iraqi that had moved to Norway because of health problems, and he married a Norwegian woman. It turned out though that this Iraqi gentleman, I got to find his name, but I don't know, Bilal, can you actually Google it? Can you Google Iraqi Norway Sovereign Wealth Fund? It's super famous. So for some reason, this guy moves to Norway for the reasons I said, random reasons. Norway discovers this massive oil deposits. He reads about it in the newspaper. It turns out he was one of the top 2 or 3 guys in Iraqi's oil industry in the 70s. And he had just randomly moved to Norway and he was looking for work. And then he literally just goes to like the newly created oil ministry in Norway and is like, oh, by the way, like I'm an oil expert. And then he basically told them what to do with the oil. He's like, yeah, you like, with all this money, like I know a lot of countries, it's called it's like the Dutch disease. You find these natural resources and it destroys your economy, right? Because all the talent and capital goes to this sector and it sucks and drains it all from all the other sectors, right? And he's like, okay, this is what you need to do. You need to create a sovereign wealth fund. You need to put all the money into this wealth fund and you distribute it and you grow it for the population. Bilal, did you get his name, by the way?
Yeah, Farouk Al-Qasim. And he's Farouk Abdul Aziz Al Qasim. I'll say it properly.
What does this say? Give me, what is the TLDR?
Well, I'll just see on Wikipedia. It says, was born in Basra, Iraq, but actually I think from his family were immigrants from Iran, and the oldest members, they were speaking Persian, whatever. I mean, it's a whole Wikipedia thing, so I'm not going to read it all out. But essentially, studied in the UK, returns to Iraq, goes to Norway. Basically did exactly what you just described there. So
legend, right? So anyways, to answer your question, Norway had a big sovereign wealth fund. All these, Saudi has one. But so to your initial question was, what are they doing with their economy? So I'll tease out a couple things, and I know you took some notes, so I'd love to follow up on that. So let's say it went from 50 to 60% oil, and you mentioned 30% now, but still much more than some of the other economies that you flagged. US is 7%. I think you even said Russia was 16%. Which is kind of crazy that UAE is double, but Saudi is 50%, right? So they've invested a ton. Their sovereign wealth funds probably invested in, they've owned significant percentages of all the big companies we know, like all the big tech companies, all the FANGs, right? Just from public markets. But they try to get ahead of blockchain. So in 2018, they made a big blockchain maneuver. Like F1, they're paying for F1, for example, to bring the sports into the thing. The shipping is massive. DP World has huge interests and their investments in India and Africa. And then over the past 2-3 years, G42. So we're talking about this beforehand. Bilal, can you tell us what G42 is?
I was about to ask you because I thought, I just know that I thought that was the same thing, what you were just describing. Well, there's a sovereign wealth fund.
Yeah.
But then they created G42, is it?
Which is like basically the UAE money doing primarily technology investments.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. So they invested in ByteDance. They invested in, they're partnering with a Silicon Valley firm to build a supercomputer, the world's largest supercomputer, $100 million. They invested or have some sort of partnership with OpenAI as well.
This is where we're going to talk about. So as I was saying with these guys before the call, yesterday, an article came out from the New York Times, and with these things, when you're reading news stories, always read about why is this news story coming out at this moment, right? So OpenAI, Sam Altman, we talked about last week, huge blow up with the board. People are angling right now, And so this article comes out from the New York Times. And the thrust of the article is this. G42, this UAE-funded technology organization, is run by a Chinese, a former Chinese American who renounced his citizenship, is now a UAE citizen. I believe his name is Peng Zhao. No one knows about Peng Zhao's background. So some people think he is involved with the Chinese government. You guys are going to laugh about this. He was the former CTO of MicroStrategy.
No way. Yeah, I had that saved. Yeah.
Dude, like that's the only thing on his CV. So this guy is pretty under the radar.
You say former CTO? Is that what it was?
CTO, according to his LinkedIn. That's what New York Times reported. They said MicroStrategy. I could be wrong here, but I'm quite confident this is correct. But the whole point is this. This is the concern that's being brought up from the New York Times article. OpenAI, as Bilal mentioned, has a partnership with G42 to create an open source large language model. Interesting, right? We talked about last week. Is open source actually the winner of the OpenAI saga? Because now people are like, we can't trust a closed AI language model, right? But it turns out that the CIA has been looking into this because G42, this UAE organization, has also taken a lot of Chinese money and taken a lot of Chinese infrastructure investment from Huawei. So they're just like, wait, is this like some roundabout way to transfer technology to China? And obviously, as we know from the China trade wars, they're not cool with this, right? So I bring all this up, and we will talk a little bit more about OpenAI after, but I think this G42 thing is super interesting. And UAE, for everything we just said, I want to add a little layer of geopolitics on this. So what is Singapore's role in the world, right? They're quite neutral, probably more aligned with the US in the grand scheme of things than China, but I mean, 60% of the country is Chinese heritage, right? And Singapore, the richest people in Singapore are all former or come from Chinese stock. So UAE, they're trying to play quite a neutral role. And like during the sanctions against Iran and Russia, they're like, no, we're just staying neutral. So a lot of trading of like sanctioned oil was going through the UAE. And like, they haven't fully picked the US's side. And which is, like, listen, they can pick whatever they want, right? It's their sovereign state, and like that's their decision. So they're actually making ties with China and Russia, but also with the US. And the US is basically decide, like they're coming in and be like, we're offering you some type of security blankets, we're selling you tons of weapons. Like, we're gonna want some type of commitment, let's say with G42, for example, where you're only gonna do AI with us. Like, this is national security stuff. Like, this is the level where it's reaching with them, right? And I mean, the criticism of UAE from the Economist article was because they have all this money and they want to, any country with money in a region, right? You want to become a regional power, you want to flex a bit. Like, they've been supporting pretty like terrible wars in like Sudan and Yemen and like and things in the region, right? Which is, I mean, every country supports things that you can look at and be like, this is awful. Yeah, and criticize. But I think it just wanted to give a 360 about their place as in a geopolitical sense, like super important, right? Like they could be, they have the opportunity to be a player where, it's like, for example, they still run flights to Israel. They were, for the Abraham Accords, one of the first countries to sign it and normalize relations with Israel. And they have a trade deal with Israel. Amongst Muslim countries in the region, they were one of the first to do it over the past decade or so. So like they have this role that can be quite positive. That was kind of the thrust of the Economist article. I mean, the whole point of it is like, this podcast comes out on the 29th. So the 30th, so in 2 days from when we record this, they're hosting 70,000 people in Dubai for this climate change conference. That's going to make all the news in the upcoming week. So like they're playing this role. There's obviously tons of complications with the amount of money involved, but yeah, that was just to answer your larger question. The climate stuff's big for them, right? Because it's very important for them to have energy transition.
Yeah, completely. So that was a great background. I mean, was there anything else on G42? I think we mentioned supercomputer, OpenAI. So you kind of mentioned the AI stuff. So the large language model is open source. This one's open source as well, right?
Yeah, apparently it's going to be open source. That's the idea, and it'll be so. At this point, they're saying it's competitive with GPT,
and Llama from Meta.
So like this is basically competing with.
Because Llama is open source.
Yeah, Llama's
whereas open source, ironically, because they call it Open AI, but don't
It's
fully
not open.
open
It's
source
basically
this stuff.
owned by Microsoft at this point.
Yeah, exactly. It should be called closed AI. But yeah, so we've got a competitor
the
to
model.
that
One more thing.
as well.
The model's called Falcon, which I just found out yesterday. Totally random. My wife was watching a travel show about Abu Dhabi. The falcon is the national animal for the country.
Bird.
So the model is called AI. The bird, yeah.
The bird of the country. So yeah, I think that was pretty much it on UAE. I'm just trying to see if we already talked about the pearl diving. Let me see if there was this one I thought was quite interesting. We've talked about Balaji talking about millionaires moving. So I think the net incomings of millionaires to the UAE was the highest in the world in the last year, which again doesn't sound crazy given the tax incentives and obviously like, you know, standard of living, you can live a really good life there, etc. But that is an interesting thing to mention as well. Anything else?
Safety narrative is a huge one too.
Oh,
like
yeah.
The public safety vibe, which you talked about, where it just feels like sanitized in a way. Like it just feels like very different.
You mean like literally feeling physically safe? Like
like obviously the flip side of that is you could get like the law is very tight,
strict
on everything. Yeah. And you don't want like the things you do in one culture to be interpreted as illegal in another culture, but it means like you're very unlikely to get mugged when you're walking around Dubai.
Yeah, I have friends who live there will tell me they can just leave their phone, like let's say they're at a cafe outside.
Right.
They can just leave it there, come back an hour later, and they don't think that it might be gone by that point. Or maybe the waiter picked it up and is saving it for them. But it's not like the incentive to steal is not you don't really want to be doing that essentially, right?
Well, they have rules around drugs and alcohol, right? I don't know what they are. Like, I
think they've loosened a lot of it. Yeah. Like you're not drinking on the street or anything, but you can do it in the hotels and stuff. It's like special
they've
licenses.
Got like places I think you can go, like clubs and bars and stuff like that. So I think,
and even the clothing stuff, like I think they've relaxed over that for the last couple of decades. Where when you look at like travel guidance, it's like women can't wear X, Y, and Z, but you go there, that is not the case. Whatever. I'll tell you that. It's like Miami Beach.
Oh, really?
It's
okay,
mad.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So they've relaxed. They've relaxed the policy on that, obviously, because it massively increases the number of people that are going to go there, spend money. Yeah. Like it does feel like it's just a massive holiday destination for all of the reasons we listed before, which is just like
good weather, good
ridiculous
food, good
indulgence. Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's these golden visas I think you're alluding to, right? You invest and you get a golden visa, basically, right? Like what you're saying, the millionaires coming.
I'm saying that for the tax incentives, the safety stuff, and I think the predictability, you know, like if you're looking at it from a purely pragmatic perspective with like how volatile stuff is, as you said, like the neutrality of their position is attractive to people that are, you know, not running their company based on election cycles or whatever the narrative is in the country. One thing I would say is like, for me, working over there was very difficult because of the time zone. Like it's a complete inverse of obviously US. Eastern or Central, and that I think
for Europe though,
my
it
entire
kind of works.
thing is calibrated to that. Yeah. Europe will be fine.
But that's why probably a lot of like people from Europe have moved out there as well, because they can still kind of do enough. It's
not
of their
too
work.
far,
yeah, time wise.
Yeah.
Well, this is related. Why is it that the area has so many great airlines? You know, Qatar, Etihad. It's because literally what you said at the time. So they're 6 hours away from, I think, 60 or 70% of the world's population, like in either direction.
You watch the diagram in the airport. It's just it goes everywhere. Yeah,
that's why those airlines crush it, right? They're literally the next. So the Balaji actually mentions this too. We're talking now that Bilal cracked the Balaji thing. We got to talk about now, but he talks about how the center of the global economy is moving back to Asia, right? Is like for basically between like the year 0 and then 1800, the center of the global economy was China and India. Like if you look at global GDP, and then basically from the Industrial Revolution until call it 20 years ago, the center of the global economy was the Europe, America nexus, right? But now it's shifting back to Asia, which is hugely beneficial for Middle Eastern locations because of how near they are. 6 hours from like China, 6 hours from India, 6 hours from Europe. So anyways, I just want to add that because
that's a good point. One last thing I was going to mention, because we had it here in the notes, was the weekend change. And I didn't know if this has actually gone through, but in the article it said, or what Trung sent me, because obviously in Arab countries or Muslim countries, the weekend is not always the same as here, right? Saturday, Sunday. You have Friday, Saturday a lot of the time. And when we were working with people there, that was still the case. So that was only a few years ago, but that was Kuwait. So I don't know.
I literally did not know that.
Yeah, because Friday is the holy day, right? So it's like Friday is Jummah, where people go and pray. Whereas in the UK and the US, Sunday is the holy day for Christians. So I think it was based on that, I'm assuming. I don't know what else it would be. But apparently they have changed that so it kind of matches the rest of the majority of the world is working on the Monday to Friday work calendar. I don't know if that's true, but it was in the notes, so I'm assuming that
that makes sense. They want to align work, like literally. Right, for the.
All right, boys, let's change topics. Let's transition to our next topic, which is OpenAI. Good, nice little breakdown on UAE and Dubai there, but let's talk about what happened since the last time we spoke. Trung, you've been following this obviously very closely. Where did we net out with OpenAI in the end, come in full circle?
Well, we left last recorded on Tuesday evening, and an hour after I did that little addition, it was confirmed that Sam Altman and Greg Brockman were returning to OpenAI. And I think that's right before Thanksgiving, and an article came out the next day which gave more color as to why the board may have made a move. So I'll talk about that article, get your guys' thoughts on it, and then I will talk about what I think is the winners and losers after we've had a time to digest it. It's been a week since, right? So the article came out from Reuters, and it said that something that spooked the board and spooked Ilya Sutskever, the founding chief scientist, and the individual that jumped from, remember, the board is 6 people. It's Helen Toner, Tasha McCauley, both don't work there. Adam D'Angelo, CTO of Facebook, first CTO, a founder of Quora, also doesn't work at OpenAI. And then 3 OpenAI members, Ilya, Greg Brockman, and Sam Altman. So basically, the non-OpenAI employees had to pull one person over, and they pulled over Ilya Sutskever. Because Ilya, in hindsight, and Elon Musk even commented about this, he's like, Ilya doesn't care about power or money. Like he's a purist. It's like something clearly spooked him. And this article from Reuters came out, and it looked like in the weeks leading up to Sam Altman's like surprise firing at this point 10 days ago, there was a big breakthrough at OpenAI. Now there's been a lot of AI community people are like, this isn't really a breakthrough. Like this, every organization is working on this, but internally it was called Q-Star. And the best way for me to describe it is this. Do you guys remember AlphaGo from Bilal's former colleagues at Google? So
yeah, what they were, it was playing Go. It would beat the Go champion or something, right?
Yeah. So crucially, this though. So they built a computer AI program to beat the Go champion, but then they built something called AlphaGo Zero, which is a program where with AlphaGo they were actually teaching it how to play, like showing it previous games. But with AlphaGo Zero, they literally didn't do anything. They just went, here's the board, figure it out. AlphaGo Zero figured out how to win this game, which is 1,000 times more complicated in terms of moves and chess. Not only did AlphaGo Zero beat the champion, it smoked AlphaGo. So the one that had been trained on human stuff. So basically, from scratch, this thing had learned how to reason about the game, right? This is what Q-Star basically is in a nutshell. It's the idea that you're not actually teaching and holding the hand of the model of how to solve math problems, for example. It's actually just reasoning on its own how to solve math problems. And in this sense, I think it was like grade school math problems. But to some people, this looked like the start of what could be AGI, like artificial general intelligence. Is like it's reasoning on its own without us really holding its hand. So some people think that's what spooked Ilya. So allegedly, workers on OpenAI, this is being disputed, went to the board with this and said, hey, we just had a Q-Star breakthrough, and we're a little bit concerned that we should not be commercializing this too quickly. So that was apparently what was being done. So NVIDIA's AI scientist researcher, his name's Jim Fan. Great follow on Twitter, by the way. Also great last name. So that's F-A-N. That's not P-H-A-N. That's Jim Fan, but pronounced the same. Jim had a great write-up on QStar, and he goes, he described it. And so I'm borrowing the AlphaGo reasoning from him. That's what I borrowed from him. He goes, though, this is his conclusion. Nothing says QStar will be more creative in writing poetry, telling jokes, or role-playing. Improving creativity is still fundamentally a human thing. So I believe natural data will still outperform synthetic ones. And what he referred to with synthetic ones is when these things are training themselves, because it's not based on like human fed and curated data, they're literally just like kind of creating their own data and working off of it, which is quite advanced and what you would expect because there's a huge limit to how much human data there is, right? Like OpenAI has already consumed the entire internet. Like there's actually not much more for them to train these models on in terms of text, man-made text. But anyways, your guys' thought on the QStar stuff, and then we can run through the winners and losers.
Jack, any thoughts, mate?
No, just watching it play out here.
Yeah.
I think what Jack said last week is like, I'm not getting too tied to this, which is smart. Not too tied to the second by second, right?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, it's hard to keep track, and the leaps in it are just so massive that you feels like you take a week off and you're talking about something completely different.
Yeah.
Or you message directly your group chat /101 conversation with your co-founder.
Yeah, that was good.
A number of people called that out from last week.
That was great.
You're the man to get the updates from, Trung.
Yeah, sure. Exactly. The 101 updates.
I have to say, we have to give a shout to all the people who posted stuff last week because Trung was on fire. If you didn't hear the episode last week, Trung was on absolute fire on his pre-workout, caffeined out vibe, and you were on good form. But we got so many comments from people who were like, I literally got a text from someone saying, I actually want to know what Trung is taking because I feel like I can bench more. And there were a few of those sort of comments. So yeah, we got...
Yeah, for Max Day, right?
There we go, exactly.
The last thing I'll add is a couple winners and losers is I think last week where we ended up was Microsoft. We talked about Microsoft, right? It's like, it looks... So they went up and down. Then the negative side was what Bilal brought up was like, and then I added some commentaries. They got pantsed. Like they invested $13 billion in OpenAI without a board seat. Sounds insane. But then we also talked about they want some deniability, right? They don't want that regulatory smoke. So they're like, hey, we had no idea. We found out 1 minute before Trung Phan, CEO of Barely AI, right? So there's that. Looking now, it looks like they got the outcome they wanted. They kept the deniability. There was like this, there's two schools of thoughts on Sam Altman. I love you guys' thoughts on this. It looked like he walked away with the following. He's back at the company. He had 90% plus of the employees publicly saying that they support him, which is like, that is like dictator stuff, right? It's like, that's how it turned out because of how badly the board communicated why they fired him. And then it looked like such an obvious win for him, more power. The counter to that, though, is that he no longer has a board seat. Ilya doesn't have a board seat. Greg doesn't have a board seat. The board right now is Larry Summers, a former U.S. Treasury Secretary, which is probably going to help him grease the government wheels. Brett Taylor, former co-CEO of Salesforce, and the guy that was on the other side of the Twitter deal with Elon. And then Adam D'Angelo stuck around from Quora, right?
Actually, on Adam D'Angelo, did you see, I think Sam Altman posted a thing about
Thanksgiving. They had dinner.
Yeah, Thanksgiving. They had dinner. And that was quite an interesting thing because I think a lot of people were kind of shitting on Adam D'Angelo in that week when it was all going off saying, oh, it must be because he has a competitor and all this sort of stuff without necessarily getting into details. And I don't know if they did it for that reason, but I feel like there was...
I actually think it's more that he actually was just trying to do his job in hindsight. And the reason I say that is
Sam
because...
Or
Adam. Like, he's like, my job to the OpenAI board was to develop AGI in alignment with humanity. And Sam Altman, when Sam was at Y Combinator, they actually invested in Quora. So these guys have a relationship, right? Like, they've known each other. And the information had a great article about Adam D'Angelo. He's known to be extremely stubborn. And listen, he like, dude, this guy dug in his heels, man. And he stayed on the board, which is crazy when you think about it. So this is the other side of the trade. This is the other side of the Sam Altman won this trade. The other side said this. It's from a long Reddit post that was going viral. The TLDR was, well, actually, Adam and the board members, they knew that this was a like a suicide mission. As in, like, Helen and Tasha knew that if they did this, there's no chance they'd ever be able to work again with Sam. But they got him off the board. So, like, if you were concerned about Sam aggregating power, you'd want to get him off the board. And they actually accomplished that, right? It's not to say that he won't get back on because they still need to fill out the board to 9 people. But, like, apparently when they left, as an agreement of them leaving, they get to have input on who the next board members are. So, like, I know we were shitting at them last week, but, like, if you actually think about what they're trying to accomplish, like, they want to pump the brakes on Sam's power and him and like consolidating power. It looks like they might have actually accomplished that job. Yeah. Not to say that they've won necessarily, because Sam, obviously, A-League player, and like the way he's able to pull this out with getting Satya to put his, as we called last week, his metaphorical goods on the tables. Like Sam's a hitter, man. No question. But I'll end with that. I think there's a lot more shoes to drop.
Yeah, no, great recap. Why don't we do a quick little recap of Binance as well then, boys, unless you had anything else. Jack, I'm assuming we don't have anything else on OpenAI, right? So Binance, I don't know much more apart from the headlines here. CZ steps down. Obviously, this happened within a day of us record. Well, it was happening while we were recording last week, and it was happening while all the OpenAI stuff was happening as well. So there was kind of these 2 big stories dropping. I think without the Sam stuff, this would have been an even bigger story, and a lot more was going into it. CZ, obviously, billionaire, founder, one of the most important, in air quotes, people in crypto. So Binance was hit with a $4.3 billion fine. One of the largest financial compliance sort of fines there's ever been. Anything else on that? Because I don't know much more about it.
It looks like, well, Jack, do you have any thoughts on the Binance?
I don't even know. It was a commingling of funds, right? That was the basis of it.
I think the thrust of it was more of the poor KYC, know your customer, and AML, anti-money laundering.
Right.
It looks like they were able to grow into the biggest crypto exchange in the world because they literally weren't even looking. They weren't even asking for ID. Like, this was a feature, not a bug, right? Like, they were just like, grow it as big as possible. And for their hands-off approach, it facilitated, obviously, a lot of these Iranian terrorists, funding for Hamas. Like, this is what the DOJ's, Department of Justice's suit and charges against in war. So there's a couple of things I'd add. Is it looks like he will be going to prison for as much as 18 months. Basically, they said that the more they pay or the more that they are able to put compliance policies in place, it will limit his prison time. So, like, it looks like CZ might be going to jail. So, which is kind of wild when you think about it.
Yeah, but you said a year ago, both SBF and CZ would be going to jail for... And I would want to separate, without knowing the details, I think what SBF did, from what we know, was straight up fraud, like, terrible stuff.
It was omission versus commission. It was a crime of commission, right? He was willingly doing it. And then CZ was just like basically looking, I don't even know if it's better or worse to be away, right? He's like, he just wasn't even, like, for them to say, let's grow this as big as possible is like just to have zero guardrails in place. Also resulted in a lot of very bad things happening, right? Like,
that's a fair point, actually. Good point.
I'd also take the funding of terrorist organizations with a grain of salt, in the sense of, like, a lot of the U.S. government that doesn't like crypto, they're just throwing that out there. Funding of terrorist organizations by crypto. But then the whole point is like, well, actually, like, straight fiat is also funding a lot of course. Right?
Exactly.
It's like, that's the other part of it. What I would say is with Binance in particular was like, they were so cool with it to grow their business to the size that it did, right? And like, CZ at the end of the day, this guy's still worth 20, 30 bill. So he's going to do a year in prison. Binance will pay $4 billion of fines. allegedly he'll do a year. I don't actually know if he will. Sentencing's in February, but you still walk away with a ton, right? And I don't know whether or not that should be. It sounds like the settlement is similar to what happened with what's the other individual, the great writer, really good crypto writer we often talk about.
Crypto
He
Hayes.
used to run the exchange. Who's
Arthur
the other?
Crypto Hayes.
Arthur Hayes, yeah, Crypto Hayes.
Yeah, Arthur Hayes, yeah.
He had a similar agreement with the government. It was like basically he was a Bitfinex, was
Yeah, I
basically
think so, yeah.
running an exchange that had zero guardrails in place in terms of AML and KYC. It never got as big as Binance, but he was under investigation and basically on the run from the United States government for a long time. So yeah, I'll add all. What else is it? It looks like everything we talked about, whether or not they're securities, turns out they're all securities.
Yeah.
That's how I would put it.
Yeah. I don't really have much more to add on CZ apart from it is kind of wild, just like I said, to think both of those guys, if he does end up in jail as well, that's kind of wild. I mean, I guess one other question for you guys is how that's or the lack of impact it's had on actual price action and the value of Bitcoin and Ethereum and other assets. I mean, it's been generally up this year. And some people were saying, well, look how resilient this thing is. Even, these two massive centralized exchanges have, had massive issues. Obviously, one actually going down, Binance is still around, but getting in trouble hasn't necessarily tanked the whole thing. Do you guys have any opinions on that or thoughts?
I feel like the two narratives are like the institutional approval. Larry Fink on CNBC saying this is, digital store of value. What did he say? I forget the exact language he used,
digital
but it feels
gold,
like
digital store of value. Yeah.
Those two things have balanced each other out to the point where there is an impending ETF approval or multiple approvals to the point where a single exchange, and Binance as a American exchange, I don't believe has been either not in action for a long time because they have Binance US, right? And didn't they charge?
Yeah,
like
I think they were the biggest one in the world, but not for US, obviously.
Right.
Outside
So I think that
US,
has something to do with it too. Seems like Coinbase is the last one standing in terms of the like they seem to have been able to withstand the governmental probes to date. I think there was something filed against Kraken last week, was it? SEC Kraken. But yeah, it feels like maybe a year ago this happening would have a very different impact on the market than after all of these quote unquote reputable institutions have endorsed it in the last few months.
Yeah. I think that's a good way to put it. Maybe
it's just what Saylor's been saying, dude. It's Bitcoin. There's nothing else. Just don't make a call. Like what Jack's been telling me to do. What Jack's been telling me and Bilal's been telling me to do for the last 30 months. Just get cold storage, brother. Put it under the kettlebell. That's it. Yeah. Keep it simple. Trung.
It's gone from gone from 1% to 5% now. That's the
what's that? What's the 1 to 5%?
1%. Like the financial advisor put 1% in
the generic
Bitcoin
thing,
just in case. I feel like the generic percentage is creeping up over the last few years as like the asset gets more support. And if you want to get into the conspiracy theories, boys, why is Binance being taken out a couple months before an impending approval?
Here we go.
Tinfoil hat. The price suppressed
segment.
So Larry can accumulate.
There we go.
Not investment advice.
Not investment advice. There we go. That's Jack's face is so good.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I love that Jack. I love how Jack's like, yeah, I got nothing to add, and then 5 minutes later drops the biggest bombshell.
We know what Jack's feed looks like because we get these pings where it's like there's literally one like 22 impressions, but the best tweet I've ever seen in my life.
You guys do not understand what Lyle said. Jack is feeding. He's on some.
I don't know where he's getting this.
I don't even know what timeline this guy's on.
Yeah, it's incredible.
But the alpha that he's pulling out from these timelines, which I'm not capitalizing on at all, is incredible.
Comedic alpha. Comedic alpha.
Maybe not
not
that's a great
investment
point.
advice.
Though.
But yeah,
Mostly
great
about
way
the
to.
ETF. Well, here's a larger question: when these ETFs launch, do you even need these exchanges? That's an honest question, because I think the 21, 22 scared a lot of normies
good
like
question.
me from dicking. Like these exchanges are making so money from fees, right? Did somebody just send a fee like on one of our chats this morning about the OpenSea fees? What was OpenSea's fee
I think Jack sent
this time last year? Like 300 million?
Oh yeah, I have it here. It was.
And what
like
is it now?
4, I think.
But that I think is more so because NFT market's down so much.
No, but like how different
and
is that
also
from
the fees.
trading shitcoins? Like how much fees were being made from trading shitcoins?
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, just the
Right?
value.
Yeah, January 22 was 387 million. November 23, 1.9.
That
So a
is
200x
a
decrease.
99.999% drop in
Jesus.
trading volume or fees, whatever they pulled, right? But the whole point is this. Extrapolate that to the buy. Because, dude, so actually, I do have a couple more Binance thoughts. I know we got to wrap up by in 5 minutes. But
let's keep going.
so Richard Tang, the company's global head of regional marketing, is a new CEO. CZ stepped down. Okay? So here's
what
something
was his
to
role?
think about.
Sorry, I missed that.
He was a global head of regional markets.
Okay.
I have no idea what that means. This was like me trying to explain AGI
Regional
last
markets.
week.
Yeah,
I have no
regional
idea what that
markets.
means. So, well, there's 2 things I'll add. Okay. You know what? There's 3 things I'll add. Trump has thoughts.
Let's go.
So number 1, as part of this settlement agreement, the U.S. government is having like bi-weekly check-ins with Binance now. Like FinCEN, the U.S. like financial regulator, one of the arms, they're going to be checking Binance books nonstop for the next 5 years. This is part of them letting them operate. So just give you an idea. Binance is basically an arm of the U.S. government at this point. Like for them to operate anywhere near the United States, they're going to have to show them everything. So that's huge AML KYC costs, but that is like par for the course for any normal financial institution, right? Second thing, Binance is being allowed to operate. So on the day of the news, I think $1 billion of assets were pulled off the exchange. So first of all, here let me give this disclaimer. I have some money invested in Coinbase, the actual stock itself.
Yeah.
This is me at the peak, being a total like reconstructing Kathy Wood's arc, and I'm just saying I'm not doing very well.
Yeah, they send that email out every
Coinbase.
day, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, they bought.
Thanks,
Coinbase
guys. You bought
today,
more.
yeah.
So I own some Coinbase, but what I'll say is this. Why isn't more money getting pulled out of Binance? Do we expect Binance to be a going concern, honestly, in the next 10 years? Maybe. But the U.S. government, their nose is all up in it now. And like Jack said, maybe this is just a slow death. They're going to grind it down until Big Larry, like you don't want to spook the market. If they shut down Binance, that's going to spook the market. But if you slow play it the way they're doing right now, you're keeping the prices where they're at. Let Larry accumulate.
What's Larry's fee going to be?
Yeah.
1%?
Yeah, what's Larry's fee going to be, right? I don't know. I don't know, dude.
What is it
You're saying
typically
from
on
an ETF? That's what you mean.
Yeah, what is it?
Well, it depends.
it's
If it's a
gonna be-
Vanguard, it's like
ETF
0.1.
is
But
30 basis points. ETF is
Yeah.
like 30 basis points.
so 0.34 BlackRock. But like if it's a Vanguard,
On
it's
10
less
Yeah.
On 10 trillion, though, boys.
Yeah, that's a
gonna be
decent-
Well,
nice.
what is
cut.
the GBTC right now? What is the
That's
holding?
higher, right? That
Yeah,
must be
it's
high.
2%.
That's
so even if
ridiculous.
Think did 1%, it's
naughty.
half, right?
Ramit Sefi is crying on both accounts on that side there. He's like, it's crypto and it's 2% fee. Crazy.
Listen, I don't know if our boy Remy lives there. He's the man. I've chatted with
He
him a
is the
bit
man,
on
yeah.
X, but if you're listening, man, happy to have you on any future episode.
We should get him on.
Yeah, we should get him on, man.
But Shrunk, did you have, because you said 3 points, did you already cover
Yeah,
those? Or
my third
I'll
point
add
was-
one more after as well.
No, I have no third point. You can do the third point.
Well, to answer your original question, which was, do we need centralized exchanges? I think one of you to ask. I think you did. My short answer to that is yes, because as the market grows and more normies, in air quotes, use crypto and interact with it, you're going to need the equivalent of a Chase Bank where you feel comfortable that, which is basically Coinbase in the US, right? Like, I think this strengthens Coinbase because they, I'm assuming, have all the AML and the anti-money laundering stuff in place. They also have the KYC, know your customer stuff in place. They're compliant. And I'm assuming Gemini is as well, because they're US based, owned by the Winklevoss twins. So I think it will split in two, like the population of people, if crypto continues to be a thing long term, which I think it will be, inshallah, and also will continue to grow. If that's the case, I think there'll be kind of a split. There'll be the philosophical, purist, Balaji style stuff around, what we talk about, putting under your kettlebell, owning your own money, not having an intermediary middleman. And that will still be around, but there will also be lots of people who just see it as an asset class, and they're going to either have it in their 401k or like whatever Vanguard
or
equivalent
whatever
fund.
Big Larry tells them
to do, BlackRock. Or they're just going to buy some and keep it in Coinbase, because that's how most people are used to using banks and anything financial. They feel comfortable doing that. So I do think centralized exchanges are still important for that reason. In the same way we've talked about on the pod before about how wallets, like crypto wallets, are amazing in some ways, that you can, memorize a number, a seed phrase, and basically walk around with money in your head. Or like you can go and open up a wallet in any country as long as you've got internet access that has access to all your money on the blockchain. That's amazing, but most people aren't going to do that. Most people want to log in with their Face ID or a PIN code and see their money there and feel comfortable. So long term, I think you're going to have both. That might be an obvious answer, but that was the answer to your original question.
Well, I guess then the question becomes, and I agree with a lot of your assessment on investment advice, is I guess then it becomes, if you're gonna have both, how many exchanges do you actually need, right? And what is the maximum value?
Yeah,
like what is a ceiling?
I think it's Uber Lyft, right? It's like Coinbase 8%, 20% Gemini or Kraken or whoever else is left. That's probably how I think it plays out. But and then you'll get the regional ones like Binance or whoever is going to run Asia market. I don't know. I mean, the hope is you don't really need them, and there's enough solutions where you actually create wallets and interfaces where you can recover your money and feel comfortable having it, that it's not under a kettlebell. But we're like in 2023 going 2024 and we still don't have that at mass scale. So hopefully that changes, but at the moment we're not there.
Man, I love how like we think they're throwaway topics and we get meaty.
There we go.
I thought Binance would just be a quick news snippet, and then Bilal drops his multiple wallet future prognostication, not investment advice.
Multi-sig. There we go.
And then multi-sig, and then Jack comes in with the full tinfoil hat. He's just like, boys, hold on a second. Let me put on this triangle tinfoil hat.
Big Larry's buying up some stuff. Yeah.
Big Larry's bags.
We'll see, boys. We'll see.
Dude,
we'll see.
Is there anything more like on Jack's Big Larry bags point? Can we Big Larry's bags?
Yeah, I've heard another. You want another conspiracy theory,
It's
boys?
the tinfoil hat segment. That's how we got to end every show from now on. There we go. Trung's going to tell us about the Canadian Prime Minister later. No, go on, Jack.
I don't have the steel man for this, so maybe I shouldn't be mentioning it.
Throw it up.
But people have been talking about the discrepancy between the Bitcoin hash rate and the price. So the amount of energy going into the mining network versus the price, and there might be some OTC deals going on to not move the markets on the exchanges on the front ends to a massive position for BlackRock et al.
Et al.
And wait,
we're on JSTOR right now.
Wait for that announcement.
There we go.
Yeah. Hold on. Can we actually say something? How cynical. I'm being honest here. When Larry Fink started going on these TV stations and like CNBC, Bloomberg, talking about the merits of Bitcoin, knowing with everyone knowing in plain sight what he was doing behind the scenes, I'm like, this is the most cynical shit in the world, man. It is just like,
he was waiting all this time to then talk his book. Yeah.
Tell me the incentive and I'll tell you the outcome. Simple.
Yeah.
Charlie Munger, right? So simple, right? That's all.
This is definitely not investment advice. We've got to throw that in there because this is
all not investment advice, but I'm not buying up because I'm
after all that, I'm not firing up.
I'm still waiting.
There we go. You're waiting for that increase. Then you're going to jump on the train.
I already told you guys I needed to hit 45K just for me to break even.
Break even, yeah.
Because I was drinking the Kool-Aid so hard. I was hitting the bid on 68K on GPTC like 2 years ago. Oh my goodness, man. When if it hits 100K,
it's only a loss if you sell, Trung.
Yeah, Trung, your Bitcoin break even is my Toad break even, buying at the height almost. So yeah.
Guys,
all right,
so
boys.
good.
I think that's a good way to wrap it up.
Well,
Unless you have anything else, let me know.
Well, so next week this time it'll be the 5th. So actually, listeners, I think we're gonna have a couple of double records coming up.
Yeah, probably closer to Christmas as well. But yeah, we'll get some doubles going, some AMAs going. I think a lot of people enjoy the AMAs. Like some people ask me just to do it every week, like a second segment of the show. But I think we'll save it for a full
let's
episode
do something,
soon.
right? Guys, we never asked you for anything. Ever. Well, sometimes we do. We sometimes ask you to share and review. Well, that's what I'm going to ask you to do. Listen, we're doing this anyways, people. Like you already see, so we're almost 3 years in, 0 advertisers. Although I do want to give it a shout out to C4 pre-workout. You're not advertising with us. Not
advertising.
Yeah, I just want to say, like, based on the amount of comments I got last week, I just want to thank you for like hyping me up 5 scoops in, and like
let's tag C4 in the comments.
There we go. Rafa, let's cut this permissionless ad, as Jack would describe it.
And let's just throw it up, man. Let's just throw it up as a tweet, and I'll at them. C4.
Maybe you got the Athletic Greens cohort of sponsored podcasts, and then you got the C4 cohort.
Yo, I will say
the barbell of supplements.
We got the meditation apps. I got an email from one of them about ads recently. Yeah, and I was like,
great contrast. That's a great contrast.
We're giving them free shout outs again.
Should be like, let's see if Trung uses it for 1 week. What happens?
There's the barbell right there. There we go. So C4
so listeners,
and Calm
just
together.
share. We're coming at you with the purest of intentions, not giving investment advice.
Exactly.
Like that's what we're here for. We're not these fake gurus, okay? Although Jack is a bit of a guru. But
Jack's a bit of a guru.
He'll never say so. He doesn't like that. But listen, people, thank you. We enjoy your support. We love your support. And we'll be back next week.
Yeah. Have a good one, everyone. We'll see you next week. Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.